I'm going to share something that's personal to me, and I have a feeling it applies to a lot of us. But I have this extreme personality in some ways where I just love the big, big highs and the excitement of it. And in a weird way, I do really well with the low lows too, like dealing with a crisis situation, because that can be like fun and exciting for me too, like figuring things out, problem solving. And that's starting to change for me as I'm more committed to learning how to love my day-to-day life and not needing those high highs and low lows, not needing the roller coaster. But that hasn't always come natural. And one day I was praying for guidance about, hey, what do I need to do next to actualize my best self? What's the next step for me? And the answer I got kind of surprised me. It was so simple, but I could tell that it was also very meaningful and profound. So I wrote it down on my whiteboard, and I looked at it every day for months. In fact, it's still on my whiteboard. It's been there for almost a year. And it was learn to love the in-between. And I intuited right away that one of its meanings was this concept that there are very few times in our lives where we're, high, receiving an award, getting accolades, winning something or achieving something that we've worked for years. And then luckily, it's also quite rare that we find ourselves in some kind of low or horrific crisis. And so in reality, we end up spending most of our life in between the high peaks and the low valleys. Most of our lives are lived in the in-between. So what is the in-between? It's a multifaceted concept, and I'm still exploring it. And I've realized that we can have these in-betweens on a big scale, like on an annual level, the peaks and valleys of the year, but we can even experience it on a daily scale. Recently, I caught myself decreasing my own happiness levels by waiting for this large check that was supposed to come in the mail. And I decided that if it didn't come, I was going to be really grumpy because that payment was already late and I needed it to show up because I had these bills to pay. And I'm not destitute, but getting that check was going to help me pay off some larger bills. And one bill in particular, I had waited to pay it off until I got this check. And now here I am late paying this other person as well. It's creating this chain reaction. And I was kind of frustrated because I pride myself on being impeccable with my word and keeping my promises. So this was creating a little bit of an embarrassing situation for me. And I sought out guidance on how to handle this because I didn't like the situation and I was feeling upset. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, I'm someone who really appreciates prayer. I like to get divine guidance as much as possible. And if you aren't personally familiar with the benefits of prayer and how to pray effectively, I've actually written a short essay that's packed with helpful prayer tips that I'm happy to share with you. I personally feel that prayer is an amazing tool for accessing divine wisdom, and it's available to anyone. And even if you're atheist, for example, it could still be a really useful tool for you to access your own deeper inner knowing, your own deeper wisdom. So I'll include a link in the description section of the video for anyone who's interested in that. In any case, the guidance I got back was, you don't need to do anything. You can apologize to your friend that the payment will be coming a little later than originally planned, and then move on with your day. And I realized that I had been sitting there grumpy, angrily waiting, kind of delaying happiness, delaying peace, delaying gratitude until after I had gotten what I wanted. And moving on with my day, what that meant to me was getting back into the flow. Because the truth is, whatever mood I was in or wasn't in, that wasn't going to rush or delay my check. So why not choose happiness? Why was I waiting? Why was I delaying that? So here are some ways I've seen people get stuck out of flow while they're in this in-between waiting space. They're waiting for a relationship to get more serious, and they feel chronically anxious or dissatisfied if it doesn't seem to be progressing or going anywhere. Or they're waiting for a job change or a promotion. And instead of enjoying what they have right here, right now, they're kind of refusing to appreciate what they have until it becomes more. And the danger with that is it's a recipe for sadness and discontent because there's always going to be some perceptual more out there to wait for and to delay your happiness until you get it. Another way I've seen myself, as well as others, get stuck in the in-between is financially. I've always ran my own businesses, and the plus side of that is that sometimes if business is really good, then that's amazing. And on the negative side, only sometimes is business really good. You know, there's ups and downs in any business as well. So other times it can be very stressful because you don't know how you're going to make payroll the next day, for example. And thank goodness, in my case, there's always been some last minute miracle, and I've never not been able to pay someone for work that they did for me. But there have been times, especially during the COVID-19 downturn, where money was very, very tight. And lenders weren't lending, and my credit lines, some of them just got pulled without warning. They're like, hey, we're not offering credit lines anymore. We took it back. And I was like, what? You can't do that. Apparently they can. And so there's this temptation for me to get really happy when money came in. And sometimes not even happy, but like just relief. And then get really, really stressed when it wasn't coming in, or if a credit line got pulled and something like that happened. It was just like such extreme highs and lows, and I wasn't really enjoying my life in between. And then most of the time, I'm there in the in between where I had enough for the time being, but I didn't have this surety that more was coming or when it was coming. And so I spent months kind of feeling this daily low grade anxiety, and it was definitely affecting my happiness level. In fact, it was during that time period that I got the instructions to learn to love the in-between. The guidance wasn't to tolerate the in-between or to, put up with this dang in-between. It was to love it. Love it. So what does it mean to love the in-between? I'm slowly coming to understand that love isn't just a word or even an action or a verb. It's an actual state of being. Love doesn't need anything. Love is sufficient unto its own. Love bears all things. To quote the Bible, love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. And that was the definition of love that Spirit was communicating to me. It's like, wow. So what I was doing was kind of the opposite. I was sitting there resentful, embittered, and anxious. And that was not love. I was not choosing to love myself, others, or life when I sat there in that hellish state of mind. And I confess that I still sometimes fall into that pit, but I'm really committed to quickly climbing out and staying out when I catch myself in there, instead of staying down there to wallow in the mud. So what are some of the ways that I do love the in-between, aka my life between the peaks and valleys? It's simple. Literally simple. Because what brings me joy is paying attention to the small and simple things that in truth are miraculous. We just take it for granted. Like paying attention to my breath, savoring a cup of peppermint tea, reading a good book, listening to my children's laughter, and truly taking a moment to soak it in and recognize how precious and short this time with them is, this very tender age they're in. I don't want to miss it because I'm sitting there worrying and wondering and waiting. I look for the good in my spouse instead of resenting him for not doing everything the exact way I expect him to. It's having lunch with a friend and connecting on a deeper level, being vulnerable, being open-hearted with them. These are the simple things that I get to do during the in-between that are so meaningful. And I'm learning to not only let it be enough, but to really elevate and appreciate how truly wonderful these precious in-between experiences and moments truly are. And we'll talk more about loving the everyday mundane of being human, of being alive, and how to magnify and enrich this experience. But for now, I just want to thank you for joining me. I'm Beck Sato. I'll see you soon. Love you. Mwah.